All right, let's talk about relationships. We're going to skip the usual cliches and get right into the science of what makes a relationship succeed, or, well, what makes it fail. We're going to look at the key do's and don'ts from some of the world's leading experts to figure out what really, truly builds a stronger bond. So let's get into it.
So let's start with this wild, almost unbelievable claim. Can you actually predict with 94% accuracy if a couple is going to get divorced just by watching them for a few minutes? That's the famous claim from researcher Dr. John Gottman. And that one idea completely changed the game. It turned marriage into something you could actually study, measure, and hopefully improve. But is it really that simple?
Well, here's where things get a little messy. While Gottman's work is absolutely groundbreaking, that 94% number comes with some drama. Critics pointed out that some of the analysis was post hoc, which is a fancy way of saying the conclusions might have been drawn after seeing the results. Kind of like shooting an arrow and then drawing the target around it. There was even a whole thing where his institute apparently removed this criticism from his Wikipedia page. So, yeah, that 94% is a great headline, but the reality is a lot more complicated. And that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
Okay, so let's start with the diagnosis. We're talking about the don'ts of a relationship. These are the big red flags, the destructive patterns that, if you let them run wild, can absolutely poison the connection you have with someone.
At the very heart of this diagnosis is a concept Gottman called the Four Horsemen. And yeah, he named them after the harbingers of the apocalypse for a reason. He found 4 specific forms of negative communication that are just so lethal to a partnership, they deserve that epic, terrifying name.
Horseman number 1 is criticism. Now, this is really different from just a complaint. A complaint is about a specific thing, right? I'm upset you didn't do the dishes. But criticism, that's a global attack on your partner's entire character. It's when you use words like you always or you never. It's not about the dishes anymore. It's about them as a person.
And then things get even worse. The second horseman is contempt. Gottman says this is the single greatest predictor of divorce. It's the kiss of death. This is criticism, but supercharged with mockery, sarcasm, eye-rolling. It's pure disrespect. It's communicating from a place of superiority, like you are genuinely disgusted by your partner.
The third horseman is defensiveness. And look, we've all been there. It feels like such a natural response when you feel attacked. But what it really is a way of blaming your partner. Instead of taking any kind of responsibility, you're just shouting, "The problem isn't me, it's you." And that, of course, just throws gasoline on the fire. And all of that leads to the final horseman, stonewalling. This is usually what happens after years of the first 3 running rampant in a relationship. One partner gets so completely overwhelmed by all the negativity that they just shut down. They withdraw, they give the silent treatment, they become a brick wall. The conversation is over.
So what's actually happening in our bodies when the 4 horsemen show up? Well, it's a state called flooding. And this isn't just a feeling, it is a literal physiological response. Your heart rate shoots up over 100 beats per minute, your body is flooded with stress hormones, and the rational, problem-solving part of your brain just goes offline. You are in fight or flight mode, and it is physically impossible to have a constructive conversation when you're in that state.
Okay, that was a lot of doom and gloom, I know. So let's flip the script. Enough about the don'ts. Let's talk about the do's. What does it actually look like when things go right? How do healthy couples build those positive habits that create a secure, lasting bond?
You know, in the world of couples counseling, there are really 2 big evidence-based ways of looking at this. On one side, you've got the Gottman method. It's very practical, very skills-focused. It's all about changing behaviors, learning how to argue better, and building good communication habits. Then, on the other side, you've got emotion-focused therapy, or EFT. This one digs a lot deeper. It's all about our attachment styles and trying to figure out the underlying emotional wounds and needs that are really fueling all the conflict. And I saw this fantastic quote from a therapist on Reddit that just nails the difference. They said, Gottman is treating a behavior rather than getting down to the underlying emotional wound. Now, that's not a knock on Gottman. It's a distinction. You can think of one as physical therapy for your communication muscles, while the other is more like deep surgery for the emotional core of the relationship. And both are incredibly valuable. And the research actually backs this up. A recent study compared the 2 methods on something called covert relational aggression. You know, passive aggression, the silent treatment, that kind of stuff. As you can see here, a lower score is better. Now, both therapies worked, they both helped, but EFT was significantly more effective in this area. It suggests that for those deeper, unspoken issues, you really got to get to the emotional root of the problem. So, what's a key do that helps build a strong foundation? Well, Gottman identified something he calls bids for connection. Think of these as the fundamental currency of a relationship. They are all the small, everyday moments when one partner reaches out for attention or support. It could be as simple as saying, "Wow, look at that bird outside." It's not about the bird. It's a bid. It's a tiny request to connect. And what Gottman found is that masters of relationships constantly turn toward these bids, while disasters turn away.
So we've got the diagnosis and we've got the foundation. Now let's talk about a treatment plan. Because let's be real, conflict is going to happen in any relationship. It's inevitable. The goal isn't to avoid it, it's to have the tools you need to manage it without doing permanent damage.
And here's one of the most surprising and honestly liberating findings from all of Gottman's research. A staggering 69% of a couple's problems are perpetual. That means they are fundamental differences that are probably never going to be fully resolved. One of you is a spender, the other is a saver. One is a homebody, the other loves to travel. These issues are going to keep coming up forever.
So this completely changes the goal, right? The point isn't to resolve every single conflict, because you can't. The real goal is to learn how to manage those perpetual problems with some humor and respect and affection so they don't just turn into this gridlocked battle. You have to learn to live with the issue instead of letting it tear you apart.
And here is the single most practical tool for when you do get overwhelmed. When you feel yourself flooding, you have to take a productive timeout. Here's how. 1. Agree on a signal beforehand, a word or a hand signal that means pause. No last-minute jabs. 2. Take at least 20 minutes apart. That's the minimum your body needs to physiologically calm down. 3, and this is key, do something distracting and soothing. Do not sit there stewing over the argument. And finally, 4, agree to come back to the conversation later, when you're both calm and actually ready to listen.
All right, for our last section, let's zoom out a bit, because a great relationship is about so much more than just managing conflict. The ultimate goal is to build a life of shared meaning and purpose together. This is about real, long-term health.
And this is how it's done. The strongest couples intentionally create a culture that's unique to them. It's made of daily rituals, like always having that first cup of coffee together. It's weekly traditions, like a non-negotiable date night. It's about actively, genuinely supporting each other's individual dreams. And it's about creating shared goals and a shared history of positive memories. This is the connective tissue. This is what makes a relationship feel like you're a team with a real shared purpose.
So we'll end with this question for you to think about. It is so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day problems, the little conflicts. But the real strength of a partnership, the thing that makes it last, lies in the world you are actively creating together. So beyond just solving problems, what are the rituals, the dreams, and the shared values that you and your partner are building? Because that's what truly makes a bond that lasts.